There was no military logic behind this strike. It did absolutely nothing to advance Russia's military agenda. This is deliberate terror, the same thing that Putin's army has been doing everywhere, from Chechnya to Syria. This is the only thing that Putin and his Russia are truly good at, killing and destroying. And this is precisely what unites Russia with regimes such as those currently in Iran and North Korea. Russia is now trying to save Iran's nuclear program. There is no other way to interpret their public signals and private activities. When one of their allies loses the ability to wage war, Russia suffers and tries to intervene. It is so cynical, and it proves time and again that aggressive regimes must not be allowed to unite and become partners.
US President Donald Trump has not attended his meeting with President Zelensky due to the lack of interest. Russian dictator Putin is trying to save the Iranian regime. Meanwhile, the US is getting ready to attack Iran with anti-bunker missiles. However, a tactical nuke could be needed to achieve this goal. So what is known about Trump's lack of interest in Zelensky, and what are the US military options on Iran? US President Trump left the G7 summit ahead of schedule due to his antipathy of French President Emmanuel Macron and lack of interest in meeting with President Zelensky, according to Financial Times. Publication highlights that NATO has shortened the upcoming Leaders Summit in The Hague to just one working session to avoid a repeat of Trump's early departure. Trump claims that he had to return to Washington to tackle the conflict between Israel and Iran, but people familiar with the matter said that this decision to leave was partly due to irritation at French President Emmanuel Macron, who had visited Greenland and opposed Trump's plans to take control over the island, as well as the US President's lack of interest in meeting with President Zelensky. Meanwhile, EU leaders failed to convince US President Trump to impose tougher sanctions on Russia, according to Bloomberg. Trump has repeatedly called on Putin to agree to end the war in Ukraine and threaten sanctions against Russia, but has not done so. Bloomberg sources report that Trump disappointed his allies at G7 summit in Canada by saying that US sanctions cost a lot of money. He said this argument during a dinner for the leaders, which was held behind closed doors. European countries are increasingly questioned whether Trump can be trusted to put pressure on Russia. It adds that Europeans are continuing to cooperate with the US president and do not want to irritate him, but they are also looking for ways to help Ukraine in a situation where the US is less involving in that. Moreover, the US Senate has decided to postpone the bill on tougher sanctions against Russia. This is reported by Semaphore publication. All amendments to the bill have already been approved by the majority of senators. However, Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal agreed to postpone this bill until at least July. And all because of the current escalation in the Middle East. This is now the top priority for the White House. At the same time, Senator Lindsey Graham assures that this decision does not mean that Congress has forgotten about Russia or Ukraine. Additionally, according to The Times, the NATO summit scheduled for June in Hague will take place in an unusual brief format with just one meeting lasting 2.5 hours. The program has been adjusted to suit US President Donald Trump, who dislikes lengthy diplomatic meetings. Times noticed that NATO summit would be as short as possible and focus only on defense spending. The meeting format has been significantly changed to align with Trump's style. Instead of the traditional 3 sessions, NATO leaders will meet only once for 2.5 hours. The final communique will be no longer than one A4 page and contain just 5 paragraphs. According to the summit program, Trump will not hold the press conference with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Rutte is determined to focus attention on rising defense spending to 5% of GDP. Under the agreed proposal, 3.5% is to be direct military defense spending, with the remaining 1.5% to be discussed further. Times also reports that Trump, after decades of the US president lecturing European allies, tries to increase the defense spending. Also, it is unclear whether President Zelensky will meet with President Trump. A source in the White House confirmed Zelensky's intention to attend summit, but the final decision will be made just before the meeting. Meanwhile, Wall Street Journal reports that US President Donald Trump has approved US plans to strike Iranian nuclear program, but has not yet made final decision. President Trump has approved a plan to attack Iran, but has not decided to wait until to give diplomacy a last chance. The US target is likely to be the Fordo nuclear power plant. US military is already building forces. A third US Navy destroyer has entered the Eastern Mediterranean, and the second US carrier group is heading to the Arabian Sea. Bloomberg reports that US officials are seriously preparing to strike on Iran. US Air Force may strike Iran as early as this weekend. The leadership of several federal agencies has also begun preparing for the attack. According to the agency, Trump has been convinced that Iran is close to producing nuclear weapons. According to sources, it was Senator Lindsey Graham who was able to convince Trump to seriously consider striking Iran. He spoke with Trump several times and urged the US president to give order to strike Iran. Also, President Trump answered key questions on the Iranian nuclear program.
Well, I think it started the first night. I mean, that first night was devastating. And it really knocked the one side off, as you know. It was a devastating evening, day. And it pretty much proceeded that way. I have a meeting in the war room in a little while. Situation room, as some people call it. So we're going to meet, we're going to see. We're in the midst of it's a terrible thing. I hate to see it. I hate to see all that death, so much death and destruction. But death primarily is what I hate to see.
Does that mean you haven't made a decision yet on what to do?
I have ideas as to what to do, but I haven't made a final. I like to make the final decision 1 second before it's due, because things change. I mean, especially with war. Things change with war. It can go from one extreme to the other. War is very bad. There was no reason for this to be a war. There was no reason for Russia, Ukraine. A lot of wars there was no reason for. Well, I don't want to get involved either, but I've been saying for 20 years, maybe longer, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I've been saying it for a long time. And I think they were a few weeks away from having one. And they had to sign a document. I think they wish they signed it now. It was a fair deal. And now it's a harder thing to sign, It's a lot of water over the dam. But, it's I say it very simply. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Too much devastation. And they'd use it. I believe they'd use it. Others won't use it, but I believe they'd use it. So that's it. It's very simple as far as I'm concerned. They can't have a nuclear weapon.
Is the destruction or the dismantling of the Fordow nuclear enrichment center, is that a prerequisite for a deal? Is that a red line for you?
No, it's just something that people talk about having. We're the only ones that have the capability to do it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to do it at all. Yeah, we have the best military equipment in the world. You see that with this fight. We have planes that are undetectable, flying around like, nobody's able to see them stealth. You guys want to be stealthy tonight. You can be stealth, you'll never lose, right? But these are incredible planes and weapons. We have the best weapons in the world, by far. Nobody close. And certain countries take advantage of that. Israel has incredible weaponry. So we'll see what happens. I've been asked about it by everybody, but I haven't made a decision.
The Guardian also reports that Trump has suggested to defense officials it would make sense for the US to launch strikes against Iran only if so-called bunker buster bomb was guaranteed to destroy Iranian nuclear facility at Fordo, according to the Guardian sources. Trump was told that dropping the GBU-57 bomb would eliminate Fordo, but he does not appear to be convinced in that. US defense officials were told that using conventional bombs, even as a part of a wider strike package, would not penetrate deep underground bunkers and that it would only do enough damage to collapse tunnels. Defense officials told that to completely destroy Fordo, it would likely to require the US to first soften the ground with conventional weapons and then drop a tactical nuclear weapon from B-2 bomber. However, dropping this bomb would likely set back Iranian ability to obtain uranium for up to a few year. Taking Fordo offline is seen as central to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons after the International Atomic Energy Agency found the site has enriched uranium to 83%, close to 90%. Any effort to destroy Fordo would require US involvement because Israel does not have such nuclear, tactical nuclear weapons or even such GBU-57 bombs. That's all for today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and glory to Ukraine!